So let's assemble the letter B. These are all the pieces that are needed for it in the template that I'm using. And each one of these happens to have a little zero or dots on each corner to indicate where they go. And the ones in the middle don't have anything because they really just go in the middle. So the first thing I like to do when I get all my pieces together is I like to fold them up and do all the creases. So that way when it gets time to glue, I can just glue everything together. So there are all the pieces all folded up and curled and everything. And now I'm going to get started with gluing. So I'm using my favorite Uhu glue and a makeshift brush. You could use whatever you want. Just use your favorite glue. This is just my glue of preference because it's nice and strong. So with this one, when you glue things into the center of a letter, I like to start with the center. You kind of have a decision to make. You could start gluing it edge by edge like I'm showing right here, but then you kind of run into the problem where you can't really access that tab on the inside very easily. So see how now I'm like, how am I going to get to the bottom glue tab on the inside? It's a little hard to get through the O and it's a little bit tricky. So there is another way that I like to do it, but I'm going to wipe off this glue first. So what you can do is you can form the shape of the circle first and then you can glue it down. And I found that this way is a lot easier. If you're wondering why the glue tabs on the left side of the screen appear a little bit smaller, that is because when I was trying to cut the paper, I accidentally overlapped a couple of pieces. So there's another piece in here with a short glue tab somewhere. So anyways, so you put the glue onto every single one of those glue tabs. And then once you do that, it's going to be really easy to just place it down on top of the circle all at the same time. So see, now I have it all placed down. It's glued. I didn't have to fiddle or struggle too much to look for the glue tabs to place glue on. So it's really easy to set down. And now I'm ready to move on to the next piece. So we repeat the process on the bottom loop, close the loop, and then put glue on the glue tab, spread the glue around, and then once you're happy with that, go ahead and stick it down. And then before you know it, you have the second loop. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the side of the bee, and this is the first piece. There's a little circle on the bottom that indicates 1, and so now we know that this goes here, and you want to press it down as well as you can. And when you glue it, make sure that the crease is just above the edge of that back part. And the way this is laid down kind of sets the tone for how the other pieces are going to sit. So now I'm going to take the second piece and I'm going to match the 1 to the 1 or the 1 circle to the 1 circle, and I'm going to glue this glue tab at the very end of that first piece to the end of the last piece, or the beginning of the next piece, sorry. So here it is, and when I'm doing it, I'm trying to make sure I line up the creases, and I'm especially trying to make sure I line up the top. So once that's set, I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm just going to put glue all over all these glue tabs that you see right here. So I'm just putting enough glue, and I am going to take that and spread it with my makeshift glue stick or glue paintbrush. Now the reason why I'm putting glue on every single tab is so that I could stick it down just enough to hold it in place while I put all the other pieces where they need to go. And that's because that little corner there in the middle of the bee is kind of hard to stick down. So I wanted to get everything in a spot where it would be easy to manipulate. So when I have it here, I'm still able to wiggle it around, and everything was where it needed to be by the time I got to the bee. So there's actually not much adjustment, and while the glue is in the process of setting, I do minor tweaks. So now we're going to move on, after all this is pressed down, to the final piece. And this is the last piece of the bee. Actually, it's the second to the last piece because the last piece is the top. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the piece before this. Put glue onto the glue tab of the piece before it, then stick down the first end to it, and then I'm just going to hold it there, line up the edges, and line it up with the bottom. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just holding it in place while the glue sets. So next I'm going to put glue onto just a couple of these glue tabs at a time. So it's kind of like I'm working backwards from the other one. So I put glue on the glue tab, I slide it in just like I did the other piece. So I'm only doing 2 at this point because I have time to focus on that inner corner that is right there. It's smaller than the rest of the letter, so it's harder to get in the right position. So here I am just getting off some glue smudges or rolling them off before the glue sets 100%. So now we're going to finish off the edges of the B by placing glue onto these large glue tabs. The little final glue tab that you see there kind of off camera to the side is going to be done last. So these are the last couple or 2 of the 3 last glue tabs that need to be glued, and I'm just rubbing off glue that kind of smudged around. So here it is, just placing those glue tabs, and you can't see it, but under there I am adjusting the glue tab so that it is moving around. So now we have this final glue tab that's on the inside there, and this is where that makeshift paper brush comes in handy because it's really skinny. So it makes it really easy to get into that little nook to get to that very last glue tab of the edge. So this is it. That's the last glue tab of all the edges, and it closes it all off. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those 3, these are stones that go into pot fillers. They're just fill up pots for plants, and I have them laying around, and I'm going to use them as weights to glue to the bottom of my paper letter, and that way it won't knock over as easy, and it will just feel a lot more sturdy when it's sitting on top of a flat surface. So I put 3 in there, so there they are, and now my bee is going to be a lot more sturdy when it's standing on the table. I used to use paper, and I've seen people use wood. I think that a little piece of wood or pennies or anything just with a little bit of weight is very helpful. What I'm doing here is I'm pulling up all the glue tabs because I'm getting ready to adhere the top to it. And by pulling up the glue tabs, when I lay the top down on it, ideally that will allow it to adhere to the top a little bit better. So here I am smearing a whole bunch of glue on it because I have to put glue all the way around before I seal it. I know there are multiple ways to do it, but this is how I do it. I like to put glue all over the glue tabs enough so that it won't set too quickly. And then once I do that, I take the cover, which is the very, very final piece of the 3D letter, and then I push it down onto those glue tabs. And because those glue tabs were sticking up when I put that cover on it, it will slightly adhere to the top of the bee. And as I do that, the edges of the bee, it's the time to make them more straight and to pull anything out or push anything in that needs to be pushed. So this is just me adjusting it so that it falls behind the top of that last piece, and I am also pushing them down into the glue tabs, like so. So yeah, and you've got to be careful that you don't press too hard, otherwise you'll wrinkle your paper. So I'm going in here and I'm checking to make sure all the tabs are down. This piece right here, it was kind of a fail, so I'm getting my makeshift glue brush and putting glue in between that little crack right there. So yes, and there's another area right there. And then after I'm satisfied with how everything is glued down, I am done with the bee. Next, you can decorate the bee however you want. This is how I decorated it for the bee in my word boo, and I'm just showing it for example's sake. So this one happens to be B for boo, and it's a bruja. So hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions.